Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 10 sensational, spectacular 20th century piano concertos for beginners. Yes, for those of you who are just starting, it's like I said about the 20th century symphonies. The golden age of the orchestra was the 20th century. It really, really was. And there have been just so many rewarding works written in the symphonic form and in concerto forms. Just amazing music, full of virtuosity and glitter and fun and great tunes and amazing orchestration. And there's really nothing like it. Nothing, even in the 19th century, which was the birth of the age of like transcendental virtuosity with people like Chopin and Liszt and Alcon and Rachmaninoff showed up and these amazing pianists who played all of this incredible music and created the romantic virtuoso concerto, which is what 90% of what we hear. But that tradition lived well on into the 20th century. In fact, it lives today. It still exists. There are just fantastic works being composed at all times for soloists. Wonderful, brilliant virtuosi. And so, I mean, this is one of those lists that, once again, I have to ask you, stick to the list. I'm not interested in any other suggestions. Don't add to it. 10 possibly unknown to most people 20th century piano concertos is more than enough to digest. We don't need any other suggestions. It was hard enough for me to limit this list to 10. I mean, I know that there are, several dozen other works that we could stick on the list, but we're not. So discipline yourselves. I had to do it, and you can do it. And here, without further ado, is the list. All right, 20th century piano concerti began. The universe began with Rachmaninoff's Third. And I put it there because, first of all, it's incredibly popular and everybody loves it, but not too many people think about it. It's a difficult work. And even for beginners, I think it's a difficult work because it's big. It's 40 some odd minutes long. It's long and it's very symphonic. In other words, the piano is accompanying the orchestra as much as the orchestra is accompanying the piano. And it's had many, many not very good performances. The big, long, slow movement is very, very tricky. It's hard to pull off, but when it's done well, it's just a dazzling piece of music, astonishing. And it dates from the first decade of the 20th century. And I think it's a great way to start off this list of 20th century concerti. Also, keeping in mind that the most popular and the most famous of all of these pieces isn't necessarily the easiest. Even for beginners, it's just not. It's a serious, large commitment of time and listening energy. It really, really is. So I'm saying that up front because, frankly, I think everything else on this list is easier. I really do. That may just be me, but that's also because I take Rachmaninoff seriously. I don't think it's just a virtuoso vehicle. It's a very tightly integrated, organic, cohesive kind of sort of piece. And if you really get to know it, and you really take the time to get to know it, you're going to just enjoy it so much more than if you just, get it because it has the famous soloist playing it. Rachmaninoff's Third is major. And that's also an indication in a way of what was going to happen as the 20th century wore on, which is that these pieces were going to cease to be mere virtuoso vehicles, but also be far more interesting as pieces of music, as representatives of certain stylistic trends, of the composer's personal voice. There's a lot in these works. And so they deserve some serious attention. It doesn't mean they're hard to listen to in an abstract or absolute sense. You could plonk them on and do whatever you want. But if you do pay attention and really give them some quality time, you're going to get a lot out of them. You really, really are. So after Rachmaninoff, Prokofiev, Symphony Number 3. This is Prokofiev's most popular piano concerto number 3. This is Prokofiev's most popular piano concerto. It is brilliant. It's fun. It's perfectly balanced formally. It has 3 movements, each of which is like 9 minutes. Sometimes one of them makes it to 10. They're a little faster or slower. The middle movement is a fantastic set of variations on a march theme. The theme is dum ba da 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 piam 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 It's just the most wonderful, wonderful tune. So it's so much fun to hear what Prokofiev actually does with it. And when it comes back in the end, you just feel like you've been around the universe with this tune. It's so much fun. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant piece of music. Next, Vaughan Williams Piano Concerto. Now, this was a piano concerto which, when Vaughan Williams wrote it, was considered to be so heavy and difficult that he arranged it for two pianos. The two-piano version is actually thicker and heavier than the version for one piano, with one piano, which isn't surprising. I like the original version for one piano. It's full of good tunes. The problem with it is that it ends quietly. The kiss of death in the concerto world is the quiet ending, because now, first of all, most virtuosi want to end with a bang so they can jump up and bow and everyone gets on their feet and goes crazy. But second of all, it makes it hard to program. Where do you put it? You'll put it on the first half of the program because that's where concerti usually go. But boy, when you go to intermission with this quiet ending and the soloist sort of crawls off the stage, well, tough noogies. It's a great work. Let him crawl, I say. So enjoy the poetry. It's a beautiful ending, by the way. The fact that it's quiet is irrelevant. It's gorgeous. And the whole work is just marvelous and completely unique. It's fantastic. Next, the Barber Piano Concerto. Samuel Barber. What a great piece this is. It's a very, very harmonically acerbic work. It's full of banging and pounding and virtuoso chops. You really got to dig into it, but it has a gorgeous slow movement with beautiful melodies. Ya-dum, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. I think there was a song from the Broadway musical Flower Drum Song that kind of lifted that tune out of it. I don't know, or vice versa. Who knows? Anyway, it's a fantastic work with a brilliant concluding toccata. A toccata is a touch piece. Toccata, toccare, Italian, means to touch, but it means literally to play a keyboard instrument. And the idea is to show off everything you can do on your keyboard. The Bach toccata and fugue in D minor. Da-da-da, ba-da-da-dum-bum. The idea there is to demonstrate the capability of the organ in the opening toccata, and that's what that is. Originally, it was an improvisatory thing. Later on, it became simply a piece in perpetual motion, something that just moves really quickly. The opening of the Vaughan Williams Piano Concerto is a toccata, and the finale of the Barber, I have an itch here, excuse me, there we go, is a toccata. And it's just unbelievably brilliant. It's jump, exciting, unbelievably exciting. So the Barber Piano Concerto is definitely a must-hear. After that, let's do something light and fluffy. Shostakovich Piano Concerto No. 2. He wrote this for his son. It was intended to be easy and enjoyable and light and tuneful, and that's exactly what it is. And everybody loves it, and there is nothing wrong with that. People, even Shostakovich said it was, just a piece of, well, he used a fairly derogatory term for it, but it's become extremely popular, especially the central movement, which is very, very pretty. It's a lovely, lovely tune. Shostakovich could write beautiful tunes when he wanted to. He could write very, very, very good light music when he wanted to. And both of his piano concertos tend to be on the lighter, more carnivalesque side. His string concertos, the violin and cello concertos, are deeply, deeply serious, tragic, even gut-wrenching works. But the piano concertos are just fun. And his second piano concerto is incredibly fun. And it usually comes with the first, which is also incredibly fun. That's for trumpet, strings, and piano. The trumpet is a solo in that concerto as well. It's an earlier work. But wow, what a terrific piece. Especially the finale. Oh my goodness. It has this. Oh, it's just. It's a gallop. He galloped. That's what it is. And it's so much fun. After Shostakovich, well, we've covered 5 already. See how quickly this goes? Because the music is just so exciting. It gets your juices flowing, even talking about it. It really does. Ravel, his piano concerto for the left hand. Piano concerti for the left hand are a 20th century thing because there were a couple pianists. There was a Czech one and there was a famous German one, Wittgenstein, Paul Wittgenstein or Ludwig. One of them was the philosopher. One of them was the pianist. Do not tell me which was which. I couldn't care less. But the brother of the philosopher, I think it was Paul. He lost his arm, his right arm in World War I. And so he commissioned all kinds of piano concerti just to be played by the left hand alone. Now, he was a lousy pianist. He really was. And a lot of the pieces that were written for him, he never even bothered to play. But Prokofiev wrote his 4th piano concerto for him. And Korngold wrote a piano concerto for the left hand. And Richard Strauss did one of his big things for the left hand. And Wittgenstein sort of banged and smashed his way through all this stuff. It was just terrible, absolutely terrible. But the great piano concerto for left hand alone is the Ravel. And the trick, of course, is to make it sound as though you were playing with 2 hands, which is quite a job because you're up here tinkling around, then you got to go bang on the lower octave, and you're doing it this or down the lower octave. And you got to jump up, and you're all over the keyboard, and you need to have like a big reach, even though you can fake it. Oh my goodness. It's an amazing work in one movement. It's only about 18 minutes long because after that, your left hand is just ready to give out. It's beautifully tuneful. It has a jazzy central interlude. Oh my gosh, it's fun. Now, Ravel wrote 2 piano concertos at the same time. The one for 2 hands, the G major piano concerto, is better known than the left-hand concerto. It gets played more often because obviously more pianists want to use both hands. But, I like the left-hand one better. That's just me. You may listen to both of them and have a different opinion. I just think the left-hand concerto is a cosmic masterpiece. And, for 18 minutes, it's easy. Come on. It's so much fun. It's not much longer than Bolero. And my goodness, it's got such fabulous music in it. So that's that. Next, the Argentinian composer Alberto Ginastera, his Piano Concerto No. 1. Now this is a really astonishing piece of music. It's written in a completely atonal expressionist style. Ha! So there you go. But it's also full of Argentinian folk rhythm and color. It's incredibly colorful. And, don't worry about not hearing tunes. We don't care. Just listen to the textures. Listen to the sound of it. Listen to the interaction between the piano and the orchestra. It's just fascinating. Really, really an amazing piece of music. And the finale. Whoa! The finale is another toccata. Remember toccatas? We've got the 3rd toccata that we're dealing with so far. It's a very popular 20th century phenomenon because you get to go completely nuts on the keyboard. It's one of the most brilliant of all of the toccatas. It sounds actually quite similar in spots to the finale of the Barber. So the 2 of them have this toccaticity in common. And the rhythmic element is there too, because the Ginastera is also da 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 da. Oh, it just goes crazy. And it was used, Emerson, Lake and Palmer made an arrangement of the finale, Toccata con Fuoco was I think what it was called. And so if you like your Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I know that ages me. Does any young person even remember who Emerson, Lake and Palmer were? It's like, oh. Well, let's put it this way. Emerson, Lake and Palmer was a very, very intelligent pop music group that, in addition to doing rock music, did a lot of classical arrangements. They did a version of Pictures at an Exhibition. They did Janacek. They really knew their classics. And the arrangements that they made were just fabulous. And one of the arrangements they made was of this, the finale of the Ginastera Piano Concerto, and they played it for Ginastera, and he gave them permission to use it because he was really impressed. It's a wonderful story, actually. So the Ginastera First Piano Concerto is the harmonically most difficult of all of these piano concertos, but it's so fascinating to listen to. Again, it's all a function of whether you feel like paying attention. If you do, you'll be rewarded. If you don't, you may not like it. That's just how it works. It works with every large piece of music, frankly. You get out of it what you put into it. It's like what Tom Lehrer once said, life is like a sewer. What you get out of it depends on what you put into it, right? So if you put quality stuff into it, you're going to get quality stuff out of it. There you go. So after Ginastera, Bartók. Bartók wrote 3 spectacular piano concertos. They're amazing, amazing works. And the second is the most famous of them. Exciting, fabulous work. Each movement has a different orchestration. The first movement is for piano and brass and winds only. The second, with percussion, of course. Well, you gotta have percussion. The second movement is for piano and strings and timpani, and it's very spooky. It's a nocturne. It's one of his night pieces. Really scary. And the finale brings the whole orchestra together, in which the themes come back from the previous movements as interludes in the rondo form of the finale. A rondo is just a movement that has the form A, B, A, C, A, D, A, etc., etc. It's a thing that comes back all the time, and it has sections in the middle. And these sections in the middle, in this case, are variations of the themes from earlier in the concerto. It's a very tightly integrated work, one worth paying attention to, absolutely. And, actually, it is kind of fascinating how all of these sort of, pounding, barbaric, toccata-like finales, of which this is another one, they have a certain similar sound, almost a similar theme. I think it's dum, ba 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 bum. That's the Barber, and then there's the Ginastera, dum ba dum ba dum ba da 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 dum ba dum ba dum. And this one is bum ba da da dum ba da 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 da. I mean, they have a similar sort of virtuoso conception about them, and so the more you listen to this contemporary music, the more you'll get a sense of what people sort of thought the piano was doing in the 20th century, for most of the 20th century. And oh my goodness, the Bartók second is just beyond brilliant, fascinating, unbelievably difficult piece to play. Real virtuoso stuff and fun to listen to. It's fun to listen to. So there is that. And then we have Finnish composer Einar Englund, who you probably haven't heard of. But Englund was a wonderful composer. He wrote 7 symphonies. He wrote a bunch of concertos and other orchestral works. Like many composers, he was going like gangbusters, and then the atonal 12-tone serial interruption happened in 20th century music when everyone started doing that kind of music because they insisted after World War II that it was the only valid kind of music that there was. Englund's style was tonal. It was quite similar in some respects to Shostakovich and Prokofiev, the Russian school. And he was basically, muted, forced into silence. He didn't feel anyone cared about his music. But later, happily, after that horrible, tyrannical rule of the academic serialists went away and passed, he started writing again and writing fantastic music. His first piano concerto he wrote in the 1950s, and it's quite similar to Bartók's and Shostakovich and those guys in its piano writing, and it is so much fun. It's another piece of music that's just, you're going to listen to it and wonder where it's been all your life. The finale particularly, it's not exactly a toccata in the sense that these other people wrote them, but it has a big romantic tune with a sense of humor. It's a romantic piano concerto that kind of makes fun of romantic piano concertos. Like, how at the end of like the Tchaikovsky first piano concerto or the Rachmaninoff or, any of those, the Grieg, any of those big ones, you've got a big tune and it comes back at the end, right? The piano does a big wind-up cadenza and it's just banging and crashing and it comes to this do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-dum, bing, and then the orchestra comes piling in. Da 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 da-da. If you're Tchaikovsky, if you're Rachmaninoff, it's ya da 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 da. The piano's going bong, 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 with big, fat, juicy chords. Well, Englund's finale does exactly that, except there's no tune. It's hilarious. It's just going da, da, da. That's all the tune there is. It's just 3 notes. Da, da, da. It's making this huge romantic, expostulation over nothing, and the piano's going chunk, 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 chunk. If you have a sense of humor and you know your romantic piano concertos, you're going to get a real kick out of this one because it's just genius. It's hilarious and wonderful at the same time. It's affectionate, but sly and witty. It's just, I love this piece. I really do. And you will too. It's just great. So the Englund First Piano Concerto is definitely worth considering. And we're going to wrap it up with another British piano concerto, Tippett. Michael Tippett's First Piano Concerto. This is a very, very different piano concerto from all of the others because Tippett's conception was to create a piece that was predominantly lyrical. His immediate inspiration was Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto, which is also very, very lyrical, full of serene singing tunes. And Tippett does very much the same thing. It's a difficult piece to play, a difficult piece to balance. The piano writing is very songful throughout. For the most part, it does have a very virtuosic and exciting finale. Don't worry. I mean, it has its exciting moments for sure. But the thematic material tends to be 20th century English, quasi-English folk-like almost, but also harmonically modern, lyrical. There's nothing else like it. And the piano has a partner in this concerto. It's a celesta, the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy instrument. Do, 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 do. And Tippett uses it quite frequently to suggest something magical, something fantastical. He uses it in his opera, The Midsummer Marriage. And the celesta is a soloist in this concerto as well, playing off the piano. So it's really a fascinating piece, a beautiful, beautiful work. Does not get all the attention it deserves, even though it has really an exciting finale, because I think it's hard to place in the universe of piano concertosity. But it is a very easy work to place in the development of Tippett's own musical language, which at this point in his career, the 1950s, was one of trying to find a new modern lyrical element in music. After that, he gave it up and went crazy. But until then, that's what he was doing. And he wrote some of his most popular and beautiful works during this period. And the piano concerto is definitely one of them. And it's also one of the most special and different and personal sounding of all of the 20th century piano concertos. And that's what makes it so interesting for me. So there you have it, friends. 10 amazing 20th century piano concertos for you to sink your teeth into. And again, the fact that you're a beginner or not a beginner, I mean, it doesn't make any difference. Who are we kidding, right? I put these down for beginners because I think they're iconic works that make an excellent place to start. I really do. I think any of these will really do you really well in getting to know this music, and also in rubbing off some of the, smoothing over some of the bumps you may encounter in dealing with more modern works, because people always feel that the more modern it is, the uglier it is, the harder it is, the more difficult it is. It's not true. It's not true at all. There's nothing difficult about any of this stuff. It's all a question of how much time you put into it and how open you are to experiencing different kinds of music. And if you have a sufficiently open mind, then it's open. If it isn't open, then, well, why are you here? What can I tell you? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.